It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
Laugh.
We had a little fun, because it's a very long day, you know.
And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is The Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
All right, let's go already.
And John Nash.
Pucker up, Buttercup.
With a focus on career, the consumer culture, and marketing from an LGBT point of view. We're all business, except when we're not.
Welcome to The Focus Group. I'm John Nash, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett.
Where do I look?
You look straight ahead there.
Oh, there it is. Lights
there
on.
he is. Hey, find us every week on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or Google Play, and now also on the Reverie app, which is available on Apple TV, the new Apple TV, as well as Chromecast and Roku. Subscribe, like, and rate us. If you do the like and the rate part, I'm told that pushes us up higher, and maybe one of the 3 editors at the podcast central of Apple iTunes will say, this is a featured show.
Can you sit there and click it yourself all day?
You know, I want to hire, like,
Click Factory.
Don't you have a friend who works for somebody who's trying to get rid of a monkey?
Yes.
We should have the monkey.
A famous person.
We should have the monkey click the thing and like.
They're in New York.
Like.
That's a good idea. That or a Jehovah's Witness.
Because they don't take no for
No, they don't take no for an answer. That's what you do. If you have a cold calling company, you want witnesses. They're used to rejection, but they keep going.
Do you need new gutters?
They get the sale.
No, I don't. Do you need a new roof? No, I don't.
If our salesperson was a Jehovah's Witness, maybe we'd be
we'd be flush.
moving forward.
Flush. Social media, we're Focus Group Radio, and that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we do have a number if you want to reach us. It's 914-362-8747. And that also could be 914-FOCUS, FOCUSGR. And if you leave a comment for us or ask us a question and we use it on air, you'll get a pair of our famous Focus Group socks, which are returning. And the colors have been improved. The sample look fantastic. I think
Purple and gray.
I like the new color. I like the new look.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done purple myself, but that's what the listeners wanted, and you seem to be
That's
okay.
what I
with
rubber
it.
stamped.
You rubber stamped it, so it's approved. Brian wanted us to do
Oh, I
orange.
did that
told
again.
you.
I should
What'd you do?
stop that.
Are you wearing makeup today?
No, I'm not. But I'm wearing a
But
shirt
you look
that
awful.
apparently
You
makes
look.
me look tanner.
I was going to say something at lunch. You looked a little bit.
Healthy?
Well, they look like you put some sort of cream on your face. Did you get Botox or something?
No.
Maybe that's.
But
a
I
good
just
color
did
for you.
something I can't do. So I don't hear it but when I edit the show after John, we want to thank John and Garrett in the booth for making all this magic come together. But when I edit the show, I'll hear myself tapping the desk or, more importantly, the microphone.
What did Johnny Carson do?
I wonder about Carson. I wonder about the late night talk shows that have the mics on the desk.
There's a lot of paper rumbling.
I suspect that there's an overhead one, and then this is a prop. Like in their world, it's a prop mic. And then for you, I would recommend tilting this up a little bit.
Oh, you would?
Yeah. So that
Because you're an audio tech.
Well, I noticed that when you lean forward, you're talking
Over it?
Yeah.
So I got to be like this.
And Garrett's smiling because
lower
Garrett knows.
Well, I always move the mic. Garrett, they always have the mic closer,
Yeah.
and I always move it back.
That's safety for them. They know.
They're all nodding yes. Should I leave it here? I just feel like it's presenting
Just don't
itself.
tap it. Because it's highly sensitive. All right, Tim.
What?
This is the weekend of October 15th.
Yeah.
If my math is correct, we're 23 days away from the end of this abysmal election cycle, and finally we'll have a decision, right? I don't even want to talk about it, but I'm just saying, 23 more days you can hold your breath and hold your nose, right?
Yeah, I was at the airport. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I was sitting when we were flying back from our trip, and there were a number of people watching CNN. They had it on the airport TV, and a lot of people said they're over it. Everyone's over it.
totally
Most people
over
have made up their minds, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we had a system similar to maybe like the Brits or the Canadians where
What do they give you?
call an election and then it's 6 or 9 weeks and you're done.
It really is
It's quick.
2 months max. You're basically saying maybe 2 months.
I mean, they're already talking now about 2020.
Oh, I know.
Someone
said that the vice presidential debate was Mike Pence's setup for 2020. I mean, okay, so we're only at 2016.
No, it's too much. It's too much, but
So we're
the
getting
only
rid of
system
that.
we have, yeah.
Well, and frankly, when you compare it to other parts of the world, as crazy as it gets, I'll take it, I guess. Not really, I'll take it. All right, so we have fancy, here on the focus group, we have fancy imaging and stuff.
Do we?
So I'm going to cue it up by saying, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well,
See how fancy that was?
that was very fancy, and maybe we need some music.
Well, we got to be careful with music.
Do we? Well, that's the problem. We used to on our old platform we could use
They had
music.
some kind of blanket
Up to 15
umbrella
seconds.
for ASCAP and all the right stuff. Yeah.
We'll have to ask the boys in the booth what we can do, what we can't do. So this one, I don't know. This caught my eye.
Caught your eye. It's like your
Well,
grandmother's rule. You catch your eye, you bring it to the
So
dinner
here's
table,
the
you talk
headline:
about it.
Man banned from riding bus for stinking of pot, and he's fuming. So we were just
that's kind
out-
of like headless spotty found
Right,
in
in
topless
Topless
bar.
Bar.
One of my favorites.
So we were just out in Seattle, and marijuana is
Legal
legal
for
in
recreational use,
Seattle.
yeah.
So this came from the Seattle area, in an area called Bremerton, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. But so apparently a marijuana enthusiast from Bremerton doesn't like the way his local transit company has been handling him, and he's calling it law and odor. Whoever wrote this, I think
And a
was
ball,
high
and a
themselves.
ball, yeah.
So the guy's name is Matthew Little, and he's been banned from riding any of the city buses for 6 months because of the overwhelmingly smell of pot that accompanies him when he rides. And
So my first thought before you continue is let's get to know the guy because you get contact high.
well,
You can sit next to him for free. By the time you get downtown, you're like a little baked.
he says he doesn't think he smells bad.
Oh, really?
He says he
Okay.
thinks it's. He describes the smell as a little bit of ganja or Karl Lagerfeld, and he said.
Can't believe he even summoned Carl.
Then he
Lagerfeld.
said, and when they asked him, he said, "From time to time, I smell like I just smoked some marijuana, and it's probably because I just did." So
that's
he's very,
honesty.
very upfront about it. And he said that there's been lots of complaints by other people on the bus, and they said it disturbs others, and that the code of conduct on the Kitsap Transit, KITSAP, is you're allowed to ban passengers who smell of cat urine, human feces, or body odor. But they haven't. There's no mention of marijuana.
Well,
They're now lumping him in this
okay.
code that says
Using that code to get him.
he has a bad odor. So now they're saying, well, it's not really about that. He's also, not only does he reek, but he's disrespectful. He yells at the drivers. They said he violates the bus rules. So he was sued by the bus company. The transit company took
Can't believe
legal
he even
action.
Went to a lawsuit.
Well, they took
actually-
legal action. He appealed it, and so the resolve was he was allowed to not, as long as he didn't show marijuana
He could
or
ride
smoke it at the bus stop, he could.
But he could
ride the
still
bus.
smell of it.
Yeah, but he apparently was also, they felt he was smoking at the
okay.
bus stop. So this is
while
what
he's
they're
waiting,
saying, right?
He gets stoned, then okay.
So he has to say he can't do that anymore. So he said he promised to do that, but that of course all hell broke loose this past September, a couple weeks ago. He violated the rules again, and they said he violated the hygiene rule. So they're calling this smell of marijuana hygiene rule. And they said he was verbally abusive to the bus driver. The bus driver said that she has asthma, and she gags when he gets on the bus, and she can't handle it. He said, listen, I'm 40 feet away. She's doing all this, he calls it all these semantics and
Histrionics,
putting on a big show, a grandiose act, he called it. Anyway, so he's been booted off the bus again. He's hired a civil rights attorney in Atlanta, and they're saying that classifying this, and they think he has a case. They said classifying the smell of marijuana along with urine and feces seems counterproductive in a place where marijuana is legal. So, but he's off the bus, and until this is
walking.
But he says he's having trouble getting to his doctor. So I thought that one was interesting. I hate when somebody gets on, they smell of smoke.
It's funny you bring up cigarettes because I was walking behind a woman who was smoking one the other day. And,
It's gross.
But
It
there
blows
was
in
a
your face.
time. There was a time when everybody was smoking.
Yeah.
And bars, restaurants, you'd be on the sidewalk, and I didn't really notice it. Now I really notice it. I mean, I don't mind, if it's blowing right in my face, I notice it.
I have a lot of friends who smoke, but I think most of them are respectful. But I thought this one was funny because he's obviously stoned and he's getting on the bus. The other quick one, our friends at Japan at the McDonald's,
Naturally,
they're offering chocolate pumpkin French fries in honor of the 45th anniversary.
I saw you put this in the deck.
So it's pumpkin and chocolate. You can see the woman there if you're watching on YouTube.
Officially. Pumpkin has jumped the shark.
Jumped the shark, particularly in Japan. So there's a little bucket of chocolate and pumpkin flavoring. You see they're squeezing it on the French fries, and they said the flavors of pumpkin and chocolate go well together unexpectedly. I never thought of pumpkin and chocolate together. They said it's quite tasty, and this is all throughout the chains, restaurants, McDonald's chains in Tokyo. And they said it's right around the time for Halloween, just for October, in a limited edition in honor of the 45th anniversary of McDonald's in Japan. The one thing, I've said this before, that I wish I had done when I was at McDonald's in Gunma, which is like the Altoona of Japan, they had deep fried Big Macs, which just sound disgusting. But I wish I got it. Rob Moran and I were there, and we were going to get deep fried Big Macs. We didn't think we'd be able to.
Fried chicken. That's fried. That's right up there with fried Twinkies.
They probably just throw it right in the fry batter.
Oh yeah. It gets that delicious.
Were you curious though? Would you be curious?
For a bite, sure. Why not? I don't know if I want to make a meal out.
You were getting on a train, this high-speed train. We just didn't feel it was probably a smart thing to do.
No, if you were sitting next to the bathroom, that might have been smart.
So what caught your eye?
All right. This caught my eye a while ago, and if you're interested in what I'm about to show you, run, don't walk, and be sure you're in the New York area. So there is a museum in Brooklyn called the Morbid Anatomy Museum, and they are running an exhibition called Taxidermy, Art, Science, and Immortality, and the centerpiece is something called the Kitten's Wedding. These are taxidermied cats. Okay, so a guy named Mr. Potter, and he is a famous British taxidermist, and he was alive from 1835 to 1918. He was considered a visionary taxidermist. Look at this.
You dressed up these kitties?
They think the guy with the middle one looks a little like Winston Churchill, by the way. Yes, so he would get the kittens into these poses, and they created a whole wedding tableau. The wedding was this tableau was completed in 1890. It shows a wedding party gathered solemnly at an altar. One disgruntled-looking kitten, it must be noted, bears a striking resemblance to Winston Churchill. It is not the largest of Potter's tableaus, but is the only one in which the animals are fully clothed right down to frilly undergarments properly out of sight. The Morbid Anatomy show is running through November 6th. It's the first formal exhibition of a Potter tableau in the U.S., and it's pretty...
Are you going to go?
I am going to make a point of getting out to see
You are not.
Yes. Tim, they're kittens. Oh, kitties.
John, it's creepy.
The woman who runs the exhibit says you can see he knew very little about anatomy and musculature because the kittens don't look very much like kittens. They were just basically posed into these human...
He's got their legs splayed out like humans.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like people.
You're going to go see this?
Yeah.
All right, I want some pictures.
Now, taxidermy was a common hobby in the Victorian English times, considered a suitable pastime even for genteel ladies like ourselves. But Mr. Potter was less a taxidermist than a folk artist. He had a museum, actually, in England that people used to pay a couple of shillings to go through and see frogs that were dressed up as people. And yeah, I thought you'd enjoy this one, actually.
Does it stink?
No, they've been treated and they're properly taxidermied, whatever that really means. But yeah, it's the Kitten's Wedding.
You and I will do that next week. I'll come up and we'll go to.
Oh my God, if you're going to be up and we're working, yeah, I tell you, it's a subway ride and it could be hilarious. Okay,
we'll see.
Right, so it runs through November 6th at the Morbid Anatomy Museum on 424A 3rd Avenue. Gowanus, Brooklyn. It might be near the Gowanus Canal, come to think of it. So there you go. That's what caught my eye. I thought it was kind of funny. Caught my eye. That's the way this segment works. Caught my eye.
Hot odor and taxidermy kitties.
You and I are like...
I guess we got to get back on business.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Well, now it's time for what you have to cue it up.
Those who fail to learn from history are forced to repeat it. Enjoy this lesson from Tim. And remember, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Today is October 15th. Somebody might say this is my day. It's National Grouch Day. Oh, there's a face. There's a face, Nash. Nash making a face.
I'm in subtle agreement, but is that your
It's a special
is
day
that
for
your
all the
Spiky
grouchy
up
people.
there?
No, but I found that Chihuahua. I was looking for a grouchy person. So if you're watching on the YouTube, I found a little dog that was grouchy. 'Cause Spike is
and clearly, and one of those pictures was actor being told to
disgruntled man.
Yeah,
Disgruntled
right.
man.
It's like one of those 3-second things. You're in class, like disgruntled, grumpy.
So they said that grouches are typically miserable, grumpy, and irritable, yet they thrive off the misfortune and they're usually generally happy.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also Sweetest Day. Sweetest, like as in candy.
Okay.
So it's not about romance. So it sounds similar to Valentine's Day, but there were 12 confectionaires in Cleveland in 1921 that decided they wanted to spread the joy because they thought so many of the city's forgotten had been overlooked for various holidays. So they went and they distributed over 20 boxes of candy to the newsboys, orphans, hospital patients, elderly, the poor, etc. And it's a very popular holiday apparently in the Great Lakes region, and they say it's catching on nationally. It's celebrated the third Saturday of October. I've never heard of it. And I lived in the Midwest in a number of
If it's
states.
catching on nationally, why haven't this is totally off my radar?
Well, I lived in Minnesota, Illinois, Ohio.
You never heard of
I've
it?
never heard of it, but Sweetest Day, October 15th, get me a candy. 1860, Grace Bedell, or Bedell, Bedell, 11 years old, she wrote a letter to, at the time, presidential candidate Abraham Lincoln and told him she thought he might look better if he grew a beard. So he did.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And as he was running, he didn't have the beard, and then he grew a beard, and then he actually, years later, had sent her a note, and they met, and he
That
thanked her.
is really funny.
Isn't that funny?
Okay. And she's right, by the way. It adds a lot of gravitas.
Well, he does,
to his
yeah, because
face.
look at,
I think
otherwise he
looks better.
seems kind of weak, doesn't he? A sickly man, wasn't he, Lincoln?
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
You're
either.
thinking of FDR, but
No, I'm not that dumb. I thought Lincoln had problems.
maybe
Legs or something?
he might have been. Yeah,
No,
because
that's FDR
tall,
too.
right?
Yeah, he's got a bad knee like me. The 1892, the U.S. government announced that the land in western Montana was now open to settlers. Come one, come all. 1.8 million acres were bought from the Crow Indians for 50 cents a share,
Oh my God.
or 50 cents an acre.
50 cents.
An acre. So $100, you and I would have been set. We were out there though. It still looks like that.
Yeah. So that's the key. That's the key. You're right. We would be. Yeah. It is between.
You could have 1 million acres out there and still have nothing.
and still have nothing. Yeah. Well, you'd
to
have
Montana.
beautiful countryside, but yeah.
1939. I know you're a New Yorker, well, transplanted New Yorker. But 1939, the New York Municipal Airport was dedicated. It was named LaGuardia.
What did Joe Biden say about LaGuardia? It's like entering a third world country.
And Trump says that. Everyone says that.
It's not my
It's-
favorite airport. JFK
yeah.
is my favorite airport.
But aren't they redoing LaGuardia?
They are. Massive redo is underway. Yeah.
One of our favorite shows in 1951 on this day, October 15th, premiered on CBS TV, I Love Lucy.
Oh boy.
That's one of the famous shots of them when they were crossing
On their way to
on
Hollywood.
their way to
right?
Hollywood, yeah. 1966, President Lyndon Johnson signed a bill creating the National Department of Transportation. If he was famous for his beagle dogs, which he would always have running around. He had a whole slew of them, and he would bring them down to the Senate or the Congress to intimidate people. He also, there's a picture of him there where he's sitting, he's in bed, and that's the press all sitting around him. He would hold press conferences in his bed. Can you imagine somebody doing that now?
John just zoomed into that. My God, he's laying in bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they wanted some, come on in.
Come on in. I'm in my jammies. Bring some cocoa. I'll tell you all about what's going on.
He apparently, somebody asked him how something was going, and he pulled out his Johnson and said, "Here's how it's going." Showed it to the press person. He was known to be quite well endowed. Apparently, our most endowed president. What they say.
What they say. Yeah. They, the
Whoever
peanut.
they is.
The peanut gallery. Yeah.
You Google it.
Okay.
And in 2011, John, Legoland opened in Winter Haven, Florida. Do you ever go to Legoland?
There's one out in California.
California,
and
is it
there's
San
one
Diego
in
area?
Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's near San Diego, and there's one in Pennsylvania now.
Oh, there
that
is?
possible. Yeah, I'd like to go, but it's not what I think it is. I think they have a couple of Lego exhibits, but there's rides.
Like Dutch Wonderland or something?
Yeah. Substitute a twisted pretzel for a Lego brick, and you probably got the.
So
Well,
that-
we took that attraction down real quick.
Dutch
By
Wonderland?
Legoland. Yeah, both Dutch Wonderland and Legoland.
That's so. What happened in the week of science?
We have some science imaging too.
Don't be blinded with science. Here's what you need to know from the week in science, according to John. It's poetry in motion.
All right. So, Tim, I thought of you when I saw this, but back in 2004, a satellite crushed a home in China. So it's a rocket launched, and something went wrong with this satellite, and it came crashing into someone's house.
It was a Chinese satellite?
Chinese satellite. State media reported that a Chinese satellite returning to Earth crashed into a villager's house on Friday.
Like a chicken coop.
It destroyed a building in the Sichuan province, but officials say no one was hurt. The roof was completely destroyed and the supporting pillars knocked to the ground. However, the capsule was undamaged and was hauled away after being inspected. So,
Does that look like someone's house?
in the,
I guess in
in the
China.
Sichuan province,
Yeah.
that could be, like the richest person's house, but that's nasty. The returning
No, it's reality.
the returning capsule only went through the roof and no one was injured. So here's how state media played this up. The returning capsule only went through the roof and no one was injured or died. Experts who inspected the return capsule found it was not damaged at all, the report quoted local officials saying. And then he says, the landing technology of our country's satellites is very mature and the precision of the landing point is among the best in the world. Members of the public need not worry about this one incident. The report quoted Chinese space experts saying, and then the guy who owned the house, typical Chinese, the satellite landed in our home. Maybe this means we have good luck this year.
Good fortune.
Good
Yeah.
fortune for the year. The
Paint it red.
Paint it red.
Good fortune. Nothing to see here. Move along. Move along.
This next one is strange. This happened literally a week ago or 2 weeks ago in Illinois. A doctor has been accused of giving patients cat saliva and vodka vaccinations. All right, so he's a homeopathic doctor. His name is, keeping with the Chinese theme, Dr. Ming Tae Lin.
Well, it could be Vietnamese.
True. He's a healthcare provider that authorities are saying have been giving
Cat saliva. How do you get
homemade-
cat saliva?
cat saliva and vodka. It's his own way of building up your intolerance, and he has this whole thing about how it changes the body's receptors from plus to minus, this whole thing. And basically, health officials are like, the vodka part's not a big deal, but the cat saliva has a lot of stuff that could actually hurt people. But it should be noted that reviews of Lynn on Yelp and other things, who is board certified,
5 stars.
generally glowing. Several patients call him a born healer. Although it takes 8 to 10 years for his treatments to actually take effect, he's a born healer. He's now before a medical disciplinary board. In fact, the hearing already happened, so I don't know what happened after that. And this last one is an ode to coffee. I don't drink it, but apparently those who grind it and save the grinds are in for some surprises. So
Why?
researchers in Italy are now experimenting with using coffee grounds to filter heavy metal out of water. And I was really fascinated by this. So here's what they do. Each year we throw away billions of tons of ground coffee. So Italians said, he goes, we in Italy drink a lot of coffee. And so they figured out a way to turn coffee grinds into this, they process it and they create a foam block that they drop into water. And here's how the experiment went. They dropped the little foam block into water containing mercury, lead, and other metallic concentrations. And over time, the foam block, which is really tiny, absorbed concentrated 60 parts per million, 99% of all heavy metals that were in the water. It's 1,000 times more effective than other filtering systems. So
Does the water taste like coffee?
no, it's not. They're not dropping the grinds in. They take the grinds and they make this little thing like some kind of a capsule that they put in, and it absorbs the heavy metal from the water. They now just have to figure out it's less effective when the water is moving through the filter as opposed to just sitting static. So they now have to figure out how to take that technology with the coffee grinds and adapt it to moving water, but they feel this could be a really, really cost-effective, easy way of purifying water. Coffee grinds.
I don't. I know you don't drink coffee, but I take my coffee grind. I throw them in the garden.
A lot of people do that.
They're great for
yeah.
roses.
They talk about that in here too, and they said it's a great use for that. But if you could imagine, drinking water is a problem, and a lot of water has trace elements of stuff. So if you can get a filter out of it,
You're stubborn about coffee. When we were traveling,
I like the smell.
but I tried to get you to take a sip. You wouldn't even do that. Not I want you to be a little more. No, because you were like that with sushi for a while.
Yeah, and then the sushi you got me to eat was where?
I don't remember where.
No, Nobu out in Vegas.
Oh, Nobu and yeah.
And you actually said at the time you're having sushi that is treated and
Yeah, but I would like you to have a cup of coffee.
that's like kind of inviting the guy on the corner to come up and say, "Your first hit's free. Come on board."
No,
the
I'm
crack
just surprised.
wagon,"
I've
right?
never
I
met
mean,
two people like you and Bob who just don't drink coffee. Which I don't. I have a couple of friends that don't drink coffee, but I would think there's a ritual in the morning. You'll just get up and have a glass of water, or
No, first thing I get up, it's water, and then I make my egg white omelet with my ham. Then I'm ready to go. I think that's the part that bothers you more. Not that I don't drink coffee, that I just am up.
well, what you don't know is you probably were lying in bed reading or doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, I always get out first.
Yeah.
And
See, not me. I don't linger in bed.
you're
up, you're out.
You're out, yeah.
I get a cup of coffee.
It's like when we were on our VW road trip, I'd get these texts at 5 in the morning. Hit
Well,
the restaurant.
we never left on time.
That wasn't my fault. That we had some dead weight.
Okay.
All righty.
Now what? Business birthday.
Business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So we have two business birthdays today. October 15th, she was born in 1917. She died at 86 in 2004 on February 15th. Jan Miner. Do you know Jan? She was Madge.
Oh my God! You're
Palmolive.
soaking in it.
You're soaking in it.
Soaking in it, Jan. Okay.
So Madge.
Wow.
So she was she's an American actress of film, television, radio, and stage, but she was best known for her iconic role as a character Madge the Manicurist in a 27-year series of television commercials as spokesmodel for Colgate Palmolive dishwashing detergent from the 60s until the early 1990s. She did appear in a number of other shows and TV shows and radio programs, but she really became an icon with TV viewers as Madge, the wisecracking manicurist, and you got the tagline right. You're soaking in it.
Soaking in it.
So the campaign ran from 66 to 92. So successful that there were commercials appeared in France. They were all dubbed where Madge was known as Françoise.
Are you serious?
In Germany,
Madge was known as
Françoise.
Because Madge was just too American.
Madge was too American. In Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, Madge was known as Tilly.
Tilly. Tilly sounds...
Finland, it was an odd one, Marissa.
That's a normal name, yeah.
And Denmark and Italy, she was known as Madge. Her trademark line, of course, was "You're soaking in it." The interesting thing, as I was doing research, is she lived in Southbury, Connecticut, which is where I grew up. In Heritage Village. And there's a little picture of the village there on the side. She lived in Heritage Village with her husband, Bob Merrill, who was also an actor for years. She died in 2004 in Bethel, Connecticut at a nursing home.
Tim, I'm very
we never got to meet her.
Really, you know what I'm upset about?
What?
Had we known...
We'd have gone and seen Madge?
You and I, let's say it's 2002, 2001, and you and I are like, oh my God, Madge lives in Heritage Village in Southbury. I would have... Hey, Madge, how was it on set? Well, it was an easy day. I just had to soak all day. I mean, her little stories. But she took that to the bank.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why she was a business birthday.
Yeah.
Another business birthday.
Well done.
92 today.
And live alive.
Right. He's alive. Lido Anthony Lee Iacocca. He's 92. Now, I thought he was dead, but 92. He worked at Ford Motor Company for a number of years, responsible for bringing the Pinto to market, which of course
We had a Pinto.
Did you?
Do you have a, but wasn't the Pinto the rear end, the Ralph?
Yeah, it was an example of bad cost benefit analysis. They were trying to make a Japanese type fuel efficient vehicle, and of course there was problems with the
fuel tank
gas
was
tank.
literally strapped to the back, right?
Well, they could in a rear end collision, part of it could break and then cause explosion.
Yeah, kaboom.
Other than that, it was a great car.
What was his famous saying when he was bringing was it Chrysler?
Yeah, well, so he before we get there, he did the Mustang, which I thought was interesting. He was responsible for that car
At Ford.
okay. And also the Lincoln Continental Mark III and the Ford Escort, and he also revived the Mercury brand with the Cougar and the Marquez, or the Marquis, as we used to call it. He wanted to bring two other products to market and got in a fight with Bill Ford, who was our Henry Ford II. He clashed with Henry Ford II at Ford Motor Company and left and went to Chrysler. And there he did the K car,
I remember
Talked
the
about
K-car.
cab forward,
K-car, yeah.
and the minivan,
Ford, and the minivan was his big
which was a total ripoff of what the Japanese were doing with small vans. But of course, it revitalized and developed a whole new segment in the U.S. with the minivan. So he did that as well. One of his last hurrahs, which he was recently involved with, although electric banks are made a hard sell for consumers, it's easier usually to sell them to investors. But he had quickly vaporized $100 million. He had $100 million of investors on this electric bike company, and it was a huge disaster. So he was setting up dealerships, and I remember this at the time. I was calling on dealers that were taking, Lee Iacocca was going around, and he was trying to put these electric bike franchises into car dealerships.
You're actually serious about that?
Yeah, no, I'm totally serious. The bikes made it to market in early 2000, but there wasn't much demand. They also had a lead acid battery that was very heavy and cumbersome, and a very short range. Although the bikes were kind of a novelty, full size, and they had a folding version and so forth, they just never became popular. But the only thing that came out of that $100 million investment was the word e-bike.
Really?
So for electric bike, yeah.
The
So happy birthday, Lee Iacocca.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
So hey, it's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, John and I are going to come back and talk about career advice and some of the best career advice that he and I have been given over the years. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by the award-winning Volkswagen Golf family. Let's make some money.
He's the business manager, let him manage.
This is the Focus Group.
Champagne! Champagne for everyone!
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash here with Tim Bennett. Find everything you need to know about our show on YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play at focusgroupradio.com. Subscribe, like, and rate us on all your subscription platforms. And social media is Focus Group Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Okay, as Tim promised before we took our little quick break, we're going to discuss, and I thought this was a great idea you had, actually, because you and I toss around, I don't want to call them one-liners, but they're these little nuggets, these little things we've been told and things we've told people, too. Right. I've actually written down stuff that are some of my classic lines that I tell people. But it's the best advice we've received, and you set it up by saying for career, but I want to step further and say it's business advice.
Yeah, business or career are just things you learned along the way that you thought were important. I had a whole list done and that I lost in the changeover of computers. Must have been on my desktop and I lost it.
It must still be there if it's...
Yeah, I look, John. I have to try to... I'm going to bring my computer up for you.
Yeah, we're going to...
You have to do a diagnostic on it.
All right, so what's one of your top ones?
So I learned this. My first job out of college, I worked for a company called LTV Steel, which was based in Cleveland. They were the second largest producer of steel in the world. And a lot of my clients were military or high fragmentation metal accounts. But I had an awful lot of small or mid-sized businesses that still did manufacturing at the time in the U.S., and one of them was a refrigerator manufacturer. And the district manager at the time was taking me around to show me the different accounts I'd be taking over. And this guy's giving us a tour of the refrigerator factory. And I could not be any less interested than I was.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'd be kind of, well, that's me.
Well, you'd be interested. I wasn't. I could care less. It was hot. There were just these big white boxes being pressed by the steel. And the district manager doesn't say anything to me. We get in the car and he says, hey, I need to give you a couple words of advice. He said...
they were a client. They were buying your steel.
Right, so that this was going to be one of my new accounts that made refrigerators. It was in South Jersey area. So he said, while this might not be of interest to you personally, he said, this is the most important thing to this guy that's going to be your client, which you're selling to. He said, so even if you're not interested, you need to listen.
Look interested.
And look interested, be present. So it was listen and be present, but listen more and talk less. I wasn't talking, but I threw the talk thing in there because it was listen to what he's saying, be interested, be present, be excited, or be interested. And I learned that years later. I remember listening to Tim Russert, and somebody said to him, how do you handle going to all these different events that you have to go to or socializing at a lot of these places where you don't really want to be particularly after work. And he said, you always have to act like there's no other place in the world you want to be than right there with
no
those
one else you
people.
want to be talking to than the person.
Right.
in
And he
front of
said,
you.
and that'll always get you through. And so I thought that was great advice.
I like that one, and I think it's very applicable for a lot of things.
Yeah, it was listen more, talk less, and be present.
And be interested.
Yeah.
And people are proud of what they're doing. It's funny, my list as I'm looking at this definitely revolves more around the fact that I've owned, I basically worked for myself since I was 24, 25. So they're more like business axioms. And I kicked off with, I have a bunch that I actually are under the umbrella of running a business, but you hear me say this a lot, and you reminded me of it the other day. You never lose when you invest in yourself.
Right.
So if you're facing a conundrum or a question and you're like, do I take a class? Do I take a vacation? I was taught at a very early age, and I believe in this, that you never lose when you invest in yourself. So if it's a $2,500 class, take the class. You never know where it's going to go. If it's going to be you desperately need a vacation, take the vacation. But I actually look at the investing in yourself less about downtime and more about pursuing other interests, because everything informs your career or your business. So you never lose when you invest in yourself.
Isn't that and I'll say it wrong, but didn't Dolly Parton say something similar about where she said that you need to...
You have to be your own manager.
Yeah.
That was her thing.
Is that similar to that, meaning that when you take care of business yourself, you're...
It's a little different because
investing.
I think in Dolly Parton's case, she wisely pinpointed the fact that she was her own brand.
Right.
And no one else can handle the brand like you can.
Better than herself, right?
Yeah. So that's another good one, actually.
Huh. The other one I learned, and I gave this advice to somebody just recently who had an interview and they thanked me, was I used to have to do a lot of phone calling. And somebody said, always smile when you're talking on the phone.
Huge. That is so huge.
Because it comes through the phone when
Yeah.
you're talking. Or if you're interviewing, make sure that you smile. Everybody
definitely
think it
comes
sounds
through. It
sounds
definitely
corny
comes
or
through.
hokey.
No.
But if you're calling, say, hey, how are you today? Hope everything's going well. Smile. And they said it goes a long way to help either help sell or help you in an interview process. But it was always smile while you're on the phone, which was a...
You know what I'll
kind of a
tag
simple
onto
one.
that one? Because I think it's a logical one. Always be professional. You and I have talked about this a lot, where you and I will hear someone's giving notice to the company, they're leaving. And they could do the 2-week thing, but if someone in front of you says, hey, you're the point person on this project, whatever, can you give us 3 or 4 weeks? Figure it out and give them the 3 or 4 weeks, because... Why are you laughing?
Because we know instances where that didn't happen. But okay.
That's true, yeah. But beyond leaving a job or something, always try to be the professional one. It pays in the long run, because we're talking about work, not like there's interpersonal, emotional stuff going on, but always be professional.
I like that one. The third one that I picked, and I only picked 4, and they're kind of in different categories, but the other thing I learned in cold calling or calling on an established account, particularly in sales or even in what we do if you're selling media, is to, when you're meeting with somebody, try to have some sort of information to give or relay, industry specific.
Yep.
So in our case, it could be about what's going on in the world of media and the changing media landscape, or how podcasting has really caught on and everybody's jumping onto it, and the importance of the importance of brand integration or whatever that is. In the auto industry, I would talk about what some peers were doing, or perhaps what success another car dealer might be having with a particular product that was hard for them to sell. So whenever I came, it really is just an icebreaker to start a conversation, and then you can go from there. But if you just come down and sit down, hey, how you doing today? I'm okay. Next.
I'll extend what you just said, and from the agency side, when I own an agency, I have my address book actually has had a lot of my clients, the wife's name, their kids' names, their ages, schools. Like if I ever heard someone say to me like, oh, my daughter I literally went into my address book and typed that in, so that when I would engage them in a conversation, I'd be like, how's Kristen doing? Oh, you remember? Oh, yeah. Boom.
I have a funny.
I know. I don't want to make that sound like it's a bad thing.
No,
but I think it's a very personal touch, right?
It backfired on me though. Once. So I had, as a sidebar, I took over a territory from this kid Tom Donnelly, who now I think he works at Mazda. He's a regional vice president, and I was taking over his territory. And so he said, "Here's my phone list." So he gave it to me, and had all the dealers named and all they're listed. And then next to it, he had Dickhead. You know, he would have different things about the guys and women that would be calling
private
on.
notes on what
so
the person.
So
Oh my God.
here I go to the dealership, and
Hey, dickhead.
and the one guy, and I still remember his name was Joe. I forget his last name. He was in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And he goes, where's your dealer phone list? I need to call a dealer in Appleton. And he grabs it out of my hand, and right next to his name was Dickhead, right there listed. And he hands it back to me. And he said, he's like, I said, oh, that's Tom's old. I said, I don't even really use it. I said, but that was Tom's old. I hated that guy, you know. You went on and on.
Turned around?
I tried to, but there was no way of turning it around. I should have had a clean phone list, but Tom just gave me his with all the little notes about the different guys. It was all accurate. I mean, the guy was a dickhead.
It was all accurate.
But, yeah.
100%. Whoa, boy. That's when, okay. So that's different than the kind of list I kept.
Well, you had a little, they have little kids. Are they in kindergarten?
Yeah, they're
dickhead.
I'm going to group together 3 axioms that I've given this advice to people who are starting business. I was given it by my first business partner who I thought was actually pretty genius when it came to understanding the very basic fundamentals of running a business. Interpersonal stuff's different,
right?
All that stuff. But number one, and you've heard me say this before, cash flow is king. Cash is cash.
Yeah.
And cash flow is king. And learning how to pay bills correctly, learning how to delay a tax payment, because the government can actually wait, right? I mean, I'm not telling anybody to do anything illegal, but you need cash in hand to run a business. The second one is, in this realm here, and you and I talk about this a lot, plan for the worst and hope for the best. It's kind of like facts on the ground, that military concept. If you set out and sit down and think, what's the worst that can happen in this venture, and you map that out, and you have a solution for that, or you have a game plan, and you hope for the best, you're not going to be surprised when something goes south of the border, right? Because you've planned for it, in a way.
I think we got to start planning for the best.
Hope for the worst. Well, plan. Yeah, I agree. Well,
Don't hope for the worst, but plan for the best, right?
Plan for the worst, hope for the best. And then one of my favorite things that I tell people who own companies or coworkers, especially in this realm here, your best new client. I want new clients. I need new clients. Your best new client is probably the client you already have.
Right.
And I say that because we entered working with Subaru. My first and second agency worked with Subaru when you were there for the LGBT side. But we got so good at doing niche marketing that soon you were giving us assignments for Ski Patrol.
Right.
And that eventually led to us being part of the creative team that launched the redesigned WRX.
The new Impreza.
The new Impreza. So, yeah, your best new client is the client you might already have. Those are a little bunch of things there.
My final one, I worked for a woman named Mary Treisbach.
I loved Mary.
Mary was head of marketing.
She's a good memory.
Mary was head of marketing at Subaru, and I remember, to this day I still do this, and I tell people to do it. I hope not too many people do it because you're going to mess me up. But whenever you go into a parking garage, head to the top. No matter what, head to the top of the parking garage. Don't get off on the one level and hunt and peck for a spot, then go to the second level one. She goes, go right to the top. She said, because as much as you travel, she said, you're gonna waste a lot of time driving around the first floor, second floor, third floor, fifth floor, 10th floor, like everyone else does. Go right to the top. There's probably a space.
There's an elevator.
99% of the time there's a space. There's an elevator. And when you fly back from wherever you are, you don't have to remember what floor you're on. I was at the top. So to this day, I do that. If I go out in the city for dinner and I go in a parking garage, I go right to the top. And that way I get back there and I don't have to remember, was I on the fourth floor, the third floor, where was I? I know I was at the top.
That falls, I know this, you didn't write this one down, but that falls right, in my opinion, in line with some of the other ones that you and I have. And one of yours was, and I used to use it differently, but if you're at a lunch with a client or another coworker or something and alcohol is being consumed, make sure you're drinking vodka,
Right.
vodka soda, and tell the waiter, that when you want a refreshed drink, the second one he brings you should be club soda.
Yeah, every other one.
Every other one. So that you are always kind of 2 steps behind the inebriation curve of who you're with.
I learned that one at LTV Steel, too, because the woman I used to take out, she was with a company called U.S. Axle, and we were trying to get the business. And he said, you got to take her out and get her 2 or 3 gin and tonics, and then she'll start giving you the pricing that the competitors are giving you. He said, but here's what you do. You change the club soda after the first one. And I'd be on my second club soda, and she's in the third gin and tonic. I'm getting 23 cents a pound from U.S. Steel, you know. And then she,
and that kind of slides into another one that I learned years ago: give a little, get a lot.
yeah.
So give a little, get a lot as you throw something out, or give a false to get a true. I heard that such and such. Oh,
That's not
you heard
true.
wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, then you go back and you jot it down. My last one would be. And this is really this is a job thing. No matter how bad an experience you have at a company or a job, you should be walking away with something positive from it. There's got to be some silver lining in any cloud. If it's no matter how bad you've experienced something, you've got to say I've walked away with something positive.
No, that match, it's Sweetest Day. So it's October 15th. You know, you play your role so beautifully. I mean, that was such a John Nash. Walk away with something
Walk
positive.
away with something positive.
Happy. So, well, that's good. No, but you are right about that. You shouldn't. You need to find the good, otherwise you kill yourself.
And don't hold on to the bad because it's going to take you down on your next thing, right?
Yep. So that's some career advice. We'll do this every now and then. We'll have to come up with some new things. We have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So, hey, it's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got some shop talk. So stay with us.
Brought to you by the redesigned Volkswagen Passat, where family happens. Visit VW.com to learn more. You're listening to the Focus Group
I said to my girlfriend just the other day, monsters are interesting, I said.
with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
And I'll bet you meet a lot of interesting people, too.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with none other than Tim Bennett.
Grouchy.
And the Sweetest Day. We're
Sweetest
on
and Grouchy Day. It's really the Tim and John Day. Grouchy and Sweetest.
If I had to say for Sweetest Day, if you had to pick like one candy you would love someone to give you from your past, like a candy that comes back from your childhood, what would it be? On Sweetest Day, if someone handed me a roll of Necco wafers, I'd be thrilled. Necco, yeah, I love Necco wafers.
I was going to say Necco wafers.
You could say Necco.
I do like them. They were. I don't know what they're called. They were. I used to get them at a deli in Stamford right after church. That was my gift for going to church. They were in a roll, and they were licorice rolls, like a wheel.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I used to love those
They're
things.
delicious.
I don't know what they were
Wasn't
called.
there a softer portion of it? The licorice is a little hard. And
Yeah.
there was some kind of candy thing that was like almost dissolved.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Oh.
But these were just rolls of. It was like a lifesaver roll, but they were licorice.
You like
wraps.
licorice.
I love licorice,
Not my
and I
favorite.
like red licorice, and not so much black licorice.
All right, so we have a quick
Twizzlers.
shop talk and we had that experience on the road when we did Red Vine versus Twizzlers.
I don't like Red Vine.
The
It
Red
tastes like
Vine
soap.
tasted like soap. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
That's a Western thing.
Quick shop talk for you guys. I found this one very amusing, and because it happens to everybody. 5 ways to politely deal with people who keep interrupting you. And the point of the article really was, you're in a meeting. You say to someone, I want to walk everybody through my idea here, and you start talking, and someone literally interjects and then hijacks the conversation, and you're off the road. However, what I found interesting about the article was what I suspected, which is dealing with people who are serial interrupters
Right.
is a slippery slope. There's really no good. My conclusion is there's a couple of techniques you could do to get the conversation back, but there's no really good way of literally saying to someone, calling them on their behavior is basically what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down. There's 5 of them. I wrote down another one, which I guess might fall under.
Well, the
them
first
all.
one was one of the most obvious ones, where it was just basically they said, let it go. If it's someone who rarely interrupts you, if it doesn't happen too often, let it go. See where the conversation goes. It's fine.
So they interrupt. They say their piece, and you move on.
Yeah, and you move on. Yeah.
The second one was set.
Weirder, this one.
Well, it said I thought this one was pretty good. It said set expectations immediately. So if you're getting up to give a presentation, say, listen, we're going to be talking about a number of different ideas here today. Some of them may be off the wall. Some of them you might not agree with. But let me get them all out on the table before you interrupt, and then we'll discuss them. So let me get them all out first. We'll put everything up on the board, and then we could have a discussion about it. That way, it doesn't derail anything. And if somebody interrupts you as that's going on, just simply say, let me get it all, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me get it all out first, and then we can discuss and decide what makes sense and what doesn't.
Have you done that?
Yeah.
And it works?
Oh, yeah.
So you're basically like, I'm holding the floor politely.
You would say, you know what, gathered a bunch of ideas from the team. I'm going to put them all up here first. And there's no right or wrong ideas, but let me get them all up here first and explain what each one means, and then we can discuss them. But if you start picking each one apart as we go along, we're not going to get anything done.
Good. You're right. What did you think of this next one?
Just keep going.
I wrote down in the margin notes, this is hard, and I underlined hard because if you are a courteous person, then you're going to yield. When someone interrupts you, you'll yield what you're saying. And then, but here what they're recommending is that if it's a habit that somebody has and they do it all the time, just keep talking. This is why I found this hard, because it's like you basically play like they never interrupted you, right?
So it's Hillary Clinton in the debates. Trump is interrupting her. She just
keeps
ignored
talking.
him.
Okay, good point.
Right?
Good point.
I mean, that would be a good analogy. The fourth one I thought was interesting, and I've done this myself with wise asses, is ask questions. So if somebody interrupts you, as you're going through it, and they say, well, what about blah, blah, blah? I say, well, what do you mean by that? Do you want to expand on that a little bit? It usually shuts them down because they get into the weeds pretty quick, and then you can, let me finish, right. And that usually, what it says here, and I agree, is it will then usually keep them quiet for the rest of the meeting if you put them on the spot. And so they're not just being disruptive.
And the author of the piece said, you're humoring the notorious interrupter.
Yeah.
You're literally giving them, and then they quiet down. This last one is the one that I thought was a slippery slope. Address it head on. In other words, talk to your coworker or friend and basically say, and be firm and direct and polite, but you can't do this, or this is a behavior you exhibit, or I'm already tongue-tied. What do you say?
Right.
Have you ever had to deal with that?
Yeah.
Oh, you?
I mean, I've dealt with.
Are you serious?
I've dealt with a number of things. I used to be in trouble in class for being disruptive.
Well, yeah,
college.
you were. Yeah.
And I remember being mortified because I would be having my own sidebar. Professor would be doing something, and I remember one time this guy stops and he says, "Would you like to share it with the rest of the class?" And I'm sitting there, and I said, no. He goes, no, I want you to share what you were talking about with the rest of the class. And I had to come up with something quick because we were talking about something that had nothing to do with what he was doing. And so I wrote in the share with the rest of the class. So if you're going to be disruptive, make sure you're disruptive in a smart way, or at least a pertinent way.
Do you happen to remember what you were talking about that you couldn't talk about when?
Yeah.
Okay, you can't talk about.
I was in a media class, and it was something with Susie Joyner, and she needed to buy a personal item for herself. It might have been a bra or something. Okay. I don't know. We were talking about where she would go in town to get a bra, and could she use my car? And we're going back and forth. And meanwhile, he's talking about the 4 Ps of marketing or whatever the hell he was doing. And he's like, do you want to share with the class what you two were talking about? I was like, no.
I've never been on that side of the equation.
No. And is that the address it head on?
That's address it head on, yeah. So, and which is what your teacher did.
Yeah.
Basically, this is a little different than cornering somebody before a meeting and saying, you have this nasty habit of doing this while people are speaking, and I want you to not do that. This is I think a smarter way of addressing it head on, right?
Well, I have Richard, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wrote this in the margin. If I start going down a path or something, he just shuts down, and then there's silence. I'm like, hello, are you done? It'll be, let me know when you're done. Which drives me crazy.
Yeah. I know.
Are we done? Are you done? Okay, and then
that really
starts again. But he works in hospital administration, so he says that happens all the time. He lets somebody will go off on something, and then he just lets them go.
Then he goes.
And then it's silent, and they're like, well, are you done?
Are you done?
Let's get back to business.
By the way, he's hysterical. My birthday was a few weeks ago, and by the way, we love those orange slices you gave us, and all the candy got eaten. I got a text message.
You ate that whole pound bar of
No,
chocolate?
that's still intact. The cookies, the cookie butter cookies are gone, though. But I got this text message saying, "Happy birthday. It's Richard." And I didn't recognize the number, but it's Richard. And I was like, oh my. So I just laughed because he sent me a nice text. So that's that. That was Shop Talk. That was our, what do we call that? 5 ways to politely deal with people who keep interrupting you.
For Sweetest Day.
For Sweetest Day, yeah.
The grouchy response for Sweetest Day. So, hey, it's Tim Bennett and John Nash. We are the Focus Group. If you get a chance, remember to subscribe, like, and rate us on any of your platforms of choice. Go to focusgroupradio.com and find out where all our platforms are. You could also follow along during the week on our Facebook page and other social media, which is also branded Focus Group Radio. We want to thank our friends at Volkswagen of America for supporting our show. They've been a partner with us for a number of years. John and I are excited. We'll be getting our new Volkswagen Golf All-Track Sport Wagons. What did I say wrong? Golf All-Track. Yeah, our Golf All-Track wagons, which we really do like. You know,
well, I
not
always
just
say
saying
it's really nice to actually say you like a product because we really like it.
It's a great car, fun to drive. So thanks again to Volkswagen. Go to VW.com and check out all the great cars VW has to offer. Have a great week.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.